Welcome, and thank you for joining us for our webinar covering Forrester study on hybrid memory NoSQL architecture for mission-critical real-time systems of engagement. My name is Cüneyt Büyükbezci, VP Marketing Aerospike, and joining me is our guest speaker, Forrester Principal Analyst Noel Yuvanla. Noel covers a wide range of topics for enterprise architecture professionals, including cloud, big data, data warehouses, in-memory databases, ETL. His research also covers a wide range of data management areas such as integration, virtualization, archiving, information fabric tools, and security. His current focus is on Forrester Wave evaluations, customer experience, industry trends, new and emerging markets, and architecture. So here is the agenda for today's presentation. First, we will hear from Noel about some trends around systems of engagement. Following the introduction, he will share key findings and his insights along with the survey results. Survey looks at the current state, challenges, and opportunities around in-memory and hybrid memory database adoption and the usage by enterprise. Between each section, we will also conduct some short poll using similar questions that are asked during the survey. So this will give all of you a chance to see how this group's answers compare against the survey results. So please submit your responses to the poll momentarily. We will close the webinar session with a Q&A, and I just wanted to remind you again that you can submit your questions anytime during the session from the Questions tab on the side panel. Before we go any further, I would like to share the terminology that was used in the survey. There are two different memory architectures used by the databases currently. Databases with pure in-memory architecture store and process the data in volatile memory. Databases with hybrid memory architecture, by design, leverages both volatile memory, DRAM, and non-volatile memory-based storage, such as flash or SSDs. Hybrid memory architecture enables low latency processing of much larger data sets and provides better reliability with reduced TCO. It is also important to understand how real-time systems, such as systems of engagement, introduces new requirements from the databases. Digital enterprises deploy systems of engagement applications to turn insight into action in real time. SOEs are data-driven applications. These applications bring transactional data into analytics at the engagement moment. Transactional analytics require processing high volumes of data at very low latencies. Enterprises deploy architectures combining traditional or first-generation NoSQL databases to enable transactional analytics. Emerging category of databases based on hybrid memory architecture are built for transactional analytics. Forrester conducted a thought leadership study and a survey to understand the current state in the enterprise, challenges and opportunities. Today, you will see the results of this survey. In coming weeks, we will provide a copy of Forrester Thought Leadership paper to all the attendees of this webinar. Now, I will turn the mic over to Noel so that he can share the details of survey.
Thanks a lot. And thanks a lot for having me on this webinar to talk about hybrid memory architectures. You know, it's a very interesting topic. So as a Forrester analyst, I speak to about 4 to 5 customers every day, whether they are the retailers, the banks, the insurance companies, the oil and gas, the telcos, the manufacturing, the government agencies, you name it, even the Fortune 100 companies. And, you know, I'll share not only some of the surveys we talked about and how we have done that, but also share certain insights around what all things are happening from a deployment perspective, from a use case perspective as well, right? So, you know, before we get into the survey discussion, I'm going to talk a bit more about trends, what we see out there happening, I guess, you know, and if you look at this chart here, we actually are moving from IT, information technology, to business technology. It's more business focused. Previously we were building IT organizations. We were just very, very focused on technology, right? Okay, let's get the technologies together, the databases, the applications running. But it's all about the business now, I guess. Business becomes a very, very important focus, right? I think that actually is a fundamental thing. Like, how do you drive better initiatives around this? We are moving from a batch-oriented focus towards more real-time focus. So if you look on the left-hand side, we had MIS days, right? I used to be working in MIS many, many years ago, to IT, to business technology. And the data was very limited back then towards more lots of data. We call this digital business. We are moving towards more real-time platform, I guess, from a self-service automation perspective. Definitely there's a growth towards more self-service, more automation happening as well, right? So this is a big trend. We're going to see a big movement towards real-time everything. And this is a very important discussion point here. Everyone wants everything now, right? Real time is becoming important. We believe about 20% of your applications today, 20% of your applications today are more focusing on real time. But that number is going to double and triple very, very soon, So we're going to see a big trend around this. All right. So what's the focus around here is that we need an in-memory data platform to support customer insights, right? And customer insights is a big push altogether in this regards, right? Where you have social data coming together, historical data coming together, data as a service coming together. You need an in-memory platform to integrate that, to drive a better strategy together, right? And we're seeing that in-memory platforms are being utilized for customer insights, customer intelligence. This is a big, big push. I think 50% of enterprises today are delivering this whole customer insights. And we believe the in-memory data platform is a very, very important area of focus. And I think every organization should be leveraging that in this regards, right? Okay. So in terms of the whole real-timeness, right? I mean, real-time requirements have become critical to succeed for every business. No one needs yesterday's data tomorrow, right? Imagine your emails coming in tomorrow, your SMS and text messages coming in a few minutes late, right? I think the fundamental requirements from a digital business is that we need data now. That is a very important strategy. If you're not embarking on a real-time strategy, well, you're going to have tougher competition going forward, I would say, right? Mobile devices are delivering new application requirements, right? As we know it, right? Mobile devices and mobile applications are driving new strategies together for organizations. Competitive pressure is happening. Running operational reporting and analytics at the speed of light is becoming critical for organizations to operate as well. New insights are demanding real-timeness. Real-time is helping retain customers. Technology now is mature for real-time as well. So definitely, I would say that real-time is a very, very important focus. Real-time applications, real-time databases have become very important for organizations. And this means that you need to have to act upon data from transactional, from an operational, from an analytical perspective fairly quickly. Previously, remember, we used to do analytics where we used to do batch processing, right? Well, those are fading away. Those are going away in the next coming years, So definitely embark on this strategy. The insurance companies, the retailers, the banks are already doing it in many organizations today. Okay, so if you look at it from a hybrid memory architecture, right? I mean, what exactly is a hybrid memory architecture? It drives better customer insights and delivers it a lot faster. It drives better real-time systems of engagement. The hybrid memory architecture, we talked about it like the DRAM and SSD, right? I mean, you have in-memory databases which do DRAM only, putting everything to memory. If it doesn't fit into memory, well, sorry, it doesn't fit into memory, right? What are you going to do, right? The architecture may not really support that. But a hybrid is the better way to going it. Why? Because not all data fits into memory, into DRAM. You also need SSD to support that. A combination of DRAM and SSD is probably most of the organizations now starting to embark on, because every data needs to be real time. Yet you don't have enough DRAM to support that. Think about it, right? So you need a combination of the DRAM and SSD to drive customer intelligence, customer analytics, all of these different types of analysis, like actionable insights are critical for organizations as well, right? So that's how we look at it from that perspective. So let's pause for a moment and do a poll and ask you guys, are you currently using or planning to use a database with in-memory database or a hybrid memory architecture? And the choices, I guess, are using in-memory databases, planning to use in-memory, using hybrid, or planning to use hybrid memory. We're going to wait for like 10, 20 seconds for people to actually poll. All right, so we got results here. 45% claim they are planning to use hybrid memory. That's the top of the list. Wow, okay. So I think most people are on a call for a reason. They are wanting to move towards a hybrid memory architecture. And we'll talk all the benefits about hybrid later on the slides there. But second one is already using in-memory databases or in-memory technologies today. So that's the second choice. That's amazing. And they got obviously planning for in-memory and hybrid as well. But certainly hybrid is an important discussion point as well. Okay, let's carry on. So if you look at it in terms of the whole platform, let's get into discussion from a Forrester survey perspective, right? So last month, Aerospike commissioned Forrester Consulting to evaluate the current levels of hybrid memory awareness across Northern America, and also look at the challenges that face from the current memory architectures. So this is actually a very interesting survey. I'll talk a bit more about like what we did with the survey, but this was a survey to look at what kind of awareness was there on hybrid memory, and what exactly are the challenges people are facing with this memory technologies as well. So the survey approach was that, well, we did an online survey of 162 decision makers in mid to large organizations across the US and Canada. There were more than 500 employees or more in organizations across various verticals, including financial services, telcos, retailers, healthcare, manufacturing, government, and others. I guess we had a very good different mix of personas, including IT managers, developers, enterprise architects, data architects, DBAs, DevOps, and project managers. And 51%, half of the people we surveyed had more than $500 million in revenue, more than $500 million in revenue. So certainly large companies were there in the survey as well, including mid-size as well, right? When you say mid-size, less than $500 million or mid-size. Okay, so respondents were involved in increasing investments and implementing system of engagement and IT deployments as well, right? So what are the key findings at the highest level? Like what exactly we found out from this survey? Number one, many are interested in learning about memory architectures. Well, why? Because memory has become critical for every application, for every transactional systems, for every operational systems you have. As I mentioned, you're moving towards everything becoming real time, right? And memory helps you deliver real time application and platform, right? It improves uptimes and reliabilities, right? So definitely we've seen companies are saying that, well, memory architectures are good, but they also are helping improve the uptime of these architectures, but also reliability of systems, right? We'll talk a bit more about this. So uptime reliability of application deployments are still challenging for companies. This is a very interesting find that uptime reliability, even though it's important, yet it is still a challenge in organizations. So we'll get into that discussion. Current users of hybrid memory architectures are seeing impressive changes to the business, allowing them to actually address the new use cases and deliver improved performance. This is a very important point. The hybrid memory architectures actually have seen impressive changes, right? The performance improvements and having the ability to deploy newer use cases are fundamentally critical things for organizations to do, right? So we'll talk a bit more about it as well. Sorry. Enterprises are planning to increase their investments within memory, which I think is important. I think every organization needs to increase their investment. Why? Because memory is the future, but also the current as well. Not everything is there today in memory, as I mentioned. At least 20% of your applications should be focusing on in-memory technologies today, and that's going to double and triple in the coming years as we see it, right? Okay, so let's get into discussion about, so that was the key findings, what we found from that surveys we talked about. So what are the current state? Like, where are people today with memory deployments? So let's look at the questions we asked them, right? Number one, are you currently using memory architectures for business applications? So if you look at the blue line, that's the question we posed them. Are you currently using memory architectures for business applications? 68% are using some form of memory architectures today, and others are considering or planning. Not surprising. A lot of people, I guess, are doing it. In fact, it's an encouraging number. I would say that this is actually a reflection that memory is important. Now, having said that, it's not that every application in your organizations is using memory. It's maybe some applications are using memory. The critical ones are using for transactional, for operational, for analytical purposes, right? So that's the important point of here. Most organizations are leveraging SSD, while hybrid memory is in early adoption. So you see 71% using SSD, the DRAM portion is 57%, and you got hybrid, the combined SSD and DRAM together is about 15%. Now, this is actually a reflection that disk drives are always slow, right? We're going to replace disk drives with SSD. That's the first replacement or migration or transition people do when they start to see applications slowing down, right? What they do is replace their disk drives with SSD. But that's what is reflection on this survey. But that doesn't really help you much with memory technologies. Why? Because just improving the disk drive latencies with SSD can probably buy you maybe 10%, 50% sometimes, right? But not like 10 times or 100 times improvements. So we'll talk a bit more about that as well. So what's interesting is companies are starting to use a larger amounts of data to support real-time applications. Now, fundamentally, we've seen, people starting to build out smaller scaled memory platforms, but obviously we are starting to see even a gradual increase in the sizes of databases. So someone actually has 14% claimed they have more than 100 plus terabytes for real-time databases. Wow, that's a lot of data, I guess, right? In real time. And I would say that and again, 50% have between 40 terabytes to 70 terabytes range of deployment, which is pretty good actually. If you had done the same survey 3 years ago, you would have seen all of these numbers, all of those bars are probably lower scaled, probably with like 1 to 2 terabytes at the most. We're starting to see an increased momentum around larger footprints for database deployments, which I think is fundamentally an important point here, that people are really investing in these in-memory technologies to drive real-time strategies, right? Companies are increasing their spending for in-memory architectures to support next-generation applications, right? So we asked the question, how do you anticipate spending the in-memory architectures to change as part of the digital transformation over the next 1 to 2 years? 62% are reporting between 11% to more than 20%. Wow. Spending on in-memory technologies. In fact, more than I think 10% claim more than 20% investments on in-memory technologies. Definitely a huge growth happening. So you will see that no one is talking about decreasing. I think only 3% claim decreasing investments in memory actually, which is surprising. I wouldn't why 3% said that, but majority of the people I guess are investing into memory technologies. Why? Because you are building this new generation of application. You're doing a lot of age of the customer, system of engagements, right? Customer intelligent applications. You're building this mobile application, IoT applications, you name it, right? All these are fundamentally very important part of that whole memory equation, right? Okay, so I think it's time to do another poll and ask you guys, what challenges do you currently face with your in-memory databases? Is it the cost of ownership, reliability issues, large or increasing number of databases, uptime issues, or availability issues? We will pause for about 10-15 seconds to get your responses. Okay. Most people should have answered that. Whoa, 67% claim it's a cost of ownership challenge they face. It's expensive. Yes, in-memory databases are expensive. I mean, memory is expensive. But if you look at the cost of memory, it is declining significantly, right? Imagine a gigabyte of memory 10, 15 years ago was how many dollars? Like hundreds of dollars, right? It's like gigabyte of memory today is like how many cents or less than $1, I think, Certainly, but I think, as you build bigger applications, you definitely need more memory. Totally agree, So you got to be selective as well, right? Which is why you have to use the DRAM and SSD to complement the cost, right? Because you can't really invest everything in DRAM, right? And that's the reason why you're facing today, and maybe databases are facing the issues where you are spending a lot of time on or money to DRAM, and DRAM prices are very expensive in most regards, right? They are declining in certain regards. We got uptime issues and large number of databases as another issue as well. All right, let's carry on. Okay, so let's carry on to the next section of the survey. So we talked about where people are today, right? In terms of their deployments, in terms of their strategies. And we realize that a lot of people, I guess, are on the current state is that they got some sort of in-memory going on. They got large amounts of data with memory, computers, resources, and they're investing into in-memory technologies. So what about challenges, right? I mean, this is a very good discussion. Okay, now the challenges reflect the fact that a lot of people, I guess, are challenged by certain things when you deploy in-memory architectures. And we asked them, how important are the following aspects of in-memory architecture to your company's digital transformation strategy? So we list them, all of these 7 or 10 of those items out there. And the number one which popped up, 95% of people say, which is very important for in-memory architectures, is reliability. Interesting, right? I mean, it has to be reliable. People are concerned that if you pull the plug or the power goes down, the data may just go away, right? Or maybe they were building caching systems, right? A lot of caching databases exist today, right? I mean, caching databases, again, when you pull the plug, the cache goes away. And caches are never consistent, by the way, with the data, actually, right? You got a data layer, you got a caching layer on top. Reliability is definitely an important area, which I think it very much aligns very well with what we see out there in the industry. There is obviously data consistency issue I talked about, because sometimes you're using caching technologies, right, as opposed to real in-memory technologies, which can really have all of the data or active data, right? There's an active data and there's stale data sometimes, right? The stale data is where you have caching technologies best suited, right? They want to replicate the data, and sometimes the data is stale, that they don't really have accurate data, which is why data consistency issue resides there, which is why you need to have active data, which is very important. And these memory technologies need to actually have the real reflection of data, what exists in an organization as of now. Ease of deployment should be there, which I think is important. Every organization wants a faster deployment of memory, and improved uptime of databases, right? The fact that people are struggling sometimes whenever there's actually a downtime associated with in-memory. Sometimes you don't know how to start up a database actually, in-memory database, because the data may be sitting in different databases. You have to grab the data, put into memory, and all those things. And also uptime, you don't have the architecture such that you can drive a very good uptime strategy. If at all a server or node fails, how do you ensure consistency and uptime of databases, right? So what matters most with these is reliability, consistency, and uptime, which is very important discussion points. This is the most important thing. So when we ask the customers, what is the most important things concerning them, right, is reliability, consistency, and improvement, right? So this is the most important thing. Now, if we look at the next slide, this slide is very interesting because we asked them how significant are the following challenges regarding to in-memory architecture, right? And if you look at the challenges, a lot of people are facing challenges already. They have reliability issues. We talked about cost of ownership issue just a few minutes ago, right? And uptime issues as well, right? So these are fundamentally that, hey, this is important. We know reliability and uptime is important. Yet, we also find it challenging. It's not trivial to do. And why are they struggling? There are solutions out there in the market which don't really have a very good uptime facility to deploy for complex applications, or even the reliability for certain high performance applications, for example. And especially when you're using older technologies such as caching, right? It really impacts reliability of data, consistency, and maybe even uptime of data, right? So what we see is that organizations are facing challenges of areas that's critical for success, right? Reliability and uptime. So definitely, I think organizations have to revisit their strategy today and see exactly what are the gaps they are having, and why are there reliability and uptime issues, right? And what are things are there for helping them accomplish or overcoming these issues? And we can talk more about this as to how people overcome this. So what are the people doing actually to overcome this actually, in fact? So how are companies addressing the challenges with the current in-memory architecture? Like, so if you already have these challenges of reliability and uptime and cost, what are you doing? Well, a big 48% claim they are replacing existing architectures with newer and alternative solutions. 48%. That's interesting. I think we are starting to see that certain older architectures are not really good enough to driving a company strategy from a memory applications, from a new generation of customer applications, or doing systems of engagement or age of the customer type of applications as well, right? Well, there are other people who are doing also upgrading, refreshing existing architectures. What does it mean that, hey, I'm going to add more memory, maybe, or caching to it, right, to solve the problem. But that doesn't really solve the long-term issue. It may solve the current issue that, hey, I'm running some issues with my memory architectures. I have 16 terabytes of memory. I'll probably put additional memory, right? Or maybe additional caching to support that, right? But replacing, I think, is the big one. Had we done the same exercise maybe a couple of years ago, I think replacement was probably going to be a very smaller percentage. Why? Because technologies weren't mature enough or have not evolved, like such as hybrid memory architectures, right? As I mentioned. Okay, it's time to do the final poll on this is, what real-time use cases have you deployed or planning to deploy with hybrid memory databases? Number 1, customer experiences. Number 2, operational excellence. Number 3, security, fraud, risk. Number 4, marketing or e-commerce. And number 5, or others. We'll pause for another 15-20 seconds to take your responses. Okay. Let's check the poll. All right, 71% were state the top use case for them is security, fraud, and risk. Not surprising. Maybe a lot of people from financial services, retailers are there, but certainly it's a very important use case. We've seen companies talk about fraud, and for fraud, you have to have real-time applications. You have to have a real-time database. You have to have in-memory platforms to do it. Without that, you would not be able to do fraud detection, right? Someone's trying to swipe a credit card. You need to actually act upon fairly quickly in seconds, sometimes even milliseconds, right? So certainly, and then obviously security in general and risk mitigation is important, or risk analytics is important as well. The second one are customer experience, which we just talked about, customer intelligence, customer customer age of the customer, system of engagement. All these are very important things. You really want to minimize customer churn, right? As we see it. So customer experience is very important as well. So customer experience from a mobile application, from an interaction perspective, we start to see that, right? You want to know more about the customer, right? And get a better customer experience with them. And real-time applications and databases are becoming very important for them. Like if you're going in the mall and you open up your phone and all of a sudden there's a message that says, hey, by the way, Noel, we'll give you a 20% discount on this pair of jeans you were looking for, which is like 200 feet away from you, right? And those are actually a real-time application. Imagine you have 100 million customers. How do you personalize that experience? And that's customer experience. It's a very, very important area. And this is growing very, very rapidly. Delivering a personalized experience to a customer, you really need memory architectures to do that. Operational excellence is important as well. Operational reporting is another important area we're starting to see, especially to drive different types of analytics and be able to provide recommendation engines and also provide better customer insights, right, on this, right? So operational excellence is also to do with how can we improve the quality of data among decision makers, right? So, all right, that's a good poll, I guess. Okay, let's carry on. So if you look at it in terms of the next section, there is we talked about the current state as to where people are. We talked about the challenges which people are facing, namely the reliability, the uptime issues, right? And obviously they're investing into these newer architectures, right? Like refreshing their memory architectures. So what is the opportunity, right, here in terms of what is the next stage from how memory architectures could be deployed? So let's dive into memory architectures and which ones are more suitable for the next generation of business applications, right? So we asked them, what would be the business benefits of hybrid memory architecture that benefits your company's needs, right? Well, improve customer experience at 49%. In fact, we just talked about a poll here, right, where customer experience is important. And they're improving it through the hybrid memory architecture, no surprise. As mentioned, hybrid memory architecture is a combination of your DRAM and SSD coming together, right? Improving employee satisfaction is another category for the business benefits. It's revenue opportunities as well. So you see a lot of these benefits. So hybrid memory architectures are critical for businesses to succeed in the age of the customer, from a customer experience perspective, from an employee satisfaction perspective, from a revenue opportunities, and many other things as well, if you look at it down below there. Okay, we asked another question, I guess, what would be the technology benefits of improved memory architecture, which benefits, better fits your company's needs, I guess, Number one is improved real-time performance. From a technology perspective, real-time performance is important. Uptime increase is important. Predictability of performance is important. Availability is important, right? So, in fact, these were certain things which we found as challenging. Remember that things which companies were already doing memory have found challenging, like uptime, availability, and we're seeing memory architectures that would benefit, like hybrid memory. You really have to have real-time performance improvements. We can see increased uptime and predictability of performance as well, right? So critical things actually going on. So what changes do you expect to see as transitioning to a hybrid memory architecture? Well, reliability and faster uptime, no surprise, right? If you're going to be transitioning to hybrid memory, what are the expected benefits, right? Is reliability and uptime. So definitely, I would say hybrid memory architectures is the way to go for your business applications today. And the real reasons to it, right? I mean, you can always do faster things with caching technologies and DRAM, but if you do a hybrid memory, you can definitely not only improve performance but also improve the reliability and uptime, which are again two additional things which are very, very, very critical for business applications to function. Most organizations are planning to deploy hybrid memory architectures as we know it, right? In fact, this survey, we said, does your company currently deploy any of the following infrastructure for memory storage for mission critical enterprise databases? And we took out a section that says planning to deploy. So we have seen a huge momentum and adoption around hybrid memory. In fact, 46% claim they're going to be planning to deploy hybrid memory, as opposed to 22% the DRAM and 17% for SSD, right? So definitely we're starting to see a momentum strongly around this, Organizations are already using hybrid memory are mostly satisfied with the deployment, right? I mean, I would say if you look at it, 87% are satisfied or very satisfied with their deployments compared to DRAM at 68% and SSD at 70%. So it tops the list right there. I think those people who get onto hybrid memory don't look back. And there's a reason behind it, because it's a combination of cost savings. You're having a DRAM and a SSD. It's able to drive better uptime, better reliability of the scenarios, which is why the satisfaction is pretty high among the list, there. Okay, so let's get into the final sections of the discussions here, like what exactly are the recommendations, for you guys. So the survey proves the point that, first of all, that memory architectures are important for every organization, and people are investing quite a lot into memory platforms. That's number one. Number two is I think people have realized they have a bit of struggle with memory architectures. Struggle in terms of uptime, struggle in terms of availability, struggle in terms of reliability of the data, what they do. And one of the big reasons why they are having such issues are they're using legacy platforms sometimes, legacy memory platforms, especially maybe caching technologies, right? When caching is like, okay, I got the databases, and on top of that, I have another cache layer, right? And the cache just pulls data from a database and brings it into the cache and services its needs. But guess what? The cache becomes stale very quickly. The data is not consistent in caches. Even performance-wise, it's not intelligent enough, right? Which is why I think the struggle exists there. The second point, I think, the third point is that not all data can fit into memory, the DRAM, all the time, right? Because the databases are growing, the data is growing. You may only have 5-10 terabytes of DRAM available, but your data is 50 terabytes or 100 terabytes, right? Which is why you need actually a combination of the two. The DRAM SSD, which is what's called hybrid in this discussion we are having, which really helps a lot for these newer generation of applications you're building. So, all right, so that's actually the key takeaway is that, that hybrid is the way to go. We're seeing that customers are satisfied with this. People are planning to deploy it. It's all these benefits you bring to it. And certainly, we've seen deployments for different types of use cases, whether you're doing customer intelligence, age of the customer, 360-degree view of the customer, fraud detection, security analytics, and what have you, right? All right, so what are the recommendations if you're on the business side of the house, right? I mean, use hybrid memory architectures to innovate and become a disruptor. So there's endless possibilities here. I think that's a fundamentally very important point here. If on the business side, you really have to ensure that IT organizations are actually starting to leverage hybrid memory architectures. Why? Because you want to be able to drive these newer generation of customer experience, right? Operational excellence kind of a deployments, but also these newer things like customer intelligence, security, and risk and fraud detections, and what have you, right? Leverage in memory to deliver better customer digital experiences, right? I think, as I mentioned earlier on, the digital experience is becoming very, very important for every organization to succeed. It's not about getting new customers; it's also about retaining customers, right? And you want to minimize churn, and memory architecture helps you because it can actually identify that there's going to be a churn likely to happen, because the data can come all together into memory and do all kinds of advanced analytics, actionable insights, and even operational insights to drive some of these things. And customers are doing it, from retailers to banks, insurance companies, healthcare, and what have you, right? Insist on real-time analytics for various use cases because to gain competitive advantage. I think this is a very important point because the fact that we are starting to see real-time analytics becoming a very important thing. I think about 40% of enterprises are already embarking on the real-time analytical journey, and that number is going to double to about 80% in the next 3 to 4 years. We're going to see lots of things going on with real-time analytics. So definitely, this is an important area of focus. From IT organizations, if you're in the IT organizations, look closely at the vendor solutions for hybrid memory architectures that can deliver uptime, reliability, and performance, right? I mean, besides the cost. I mean, cost is also an important factor. We talked about it as well, right? 4 things: uptime, reliability, performance, and cost are fundamentally very important, especially when you look at vendor solutions that can scale, but also ensure consistency of the data, reliability of the platform to ensure it's 24/7, right? Because you have global operations running. Expand to support more applications and use cases to drive business innovation and growth, right? You want to be able to drive and expand to more applications, not just limited applications. Today, most people are doing less than 20% applications as real time. But as I mentioned, the goal is at least 20% of your applications already are suitable today in your organizations for real-time in-memory platforms, and that number is going to go double and triple in the coming years. So certainly look out for those low-hanging fruit for applications. As I mentioned, could be customer experience applications, could be operational excellence application focused, or even security risk application as well, as we talked about. In-memory technology is mainstream already. As I mentioned, the adoption is huge. In fact, we saw that first slide. I think memory adoption 68%, right there already. But obviously technologies are evolving, right? Certainly like hybrid is an example. Leverage is from on-premise for on-premise cloud hybrid application. I think the more important thing is to leverage this platform for whether you're doing it on-premise applications, whether you're doing it cloud application, whether you're doing a hybrid between on-premise and cloud, and all kind of analytics as well. So it's suitable for all workloads, whether you're doing transactional, operational, or analytical platforms. So suitable for all across the board, as well as different types of platforms from an on-premise perspective, from a cloud perspective, and what have you. So I would definitely encourage you guys to actually look at that. If you don't do that, what is going to happen is you're going to run into a stiffer competition. You may have maybe customer churn going on, right? And all of these things which are very important for your business. So look at those things which can really drive certain innovation and growth, which I think will be very, very critical for organizations going forward. All right, with that, I would like to thank you and hand it back to you guys.
Thank you, Noel, for the great insight, and for our attendees, I hope you find it very very helpful. There is a lot of information which was shared today. I would like to now use the next 10 minutes or so to answer your questions. So please keep on submitting your questions through the question section on the right panel at the go to meeting question section, and we will pull out and answer your questions. So I have here one question, Noel. This is about the workloads, and the question is, can we run all kinds of workloads, transactional, analytics, or operational, in an in-memory database?
Yeah, that's
hybrid memory.
Absolutely. That's a great question, actually. I mean, we have seen, fundamentally, if you look at history, right? I mean, over the last 10 years, we've been doing in-memory processing a lot, but mostly was focusing on transactional systems or just read-only copies of data through caching. Today, a lot of things have changed a lot. People are building these new types of applications, what you call translytical, right? Translytical transactions and analytical and operational reporting together applications. And I think these applications together are fundamentally important, right? You want to be able to do analytics at the speed of transactions, right? If you want to do analytics at the speed of transactions, you got to do a hybrid memory or memory architectures. Because you don't want to have separate database for transactional, separate databases for operational, separate data for analytical. You lose the context. Number one, you lose the data synchronization effort. You lose the reliability and consistency of data as well, right? So which is why we have seen customers do is to build one in-memory database platform for certain application and do all kinds of workloads, whether you're doing operational, analytical, and transactional together. That actually is the new trend, actually, which has emerged over just a few years ago, and we're going to see that actually evolving into a very strong adoption in the coming years. Yeah.
Great. And there's another question here about the cloud and the deployment model. So are hybrid memory databases suitable for public cloud deployment?
Well, I mean, you won't have one database which can span both. You're probably going to have two sets of databases, right? You probably have, or maybe three sets of databases. You probably want to have on-premise memory databases. You want to have cloud memory databases out there, right? And you also maybe want to have hybrid, but the hybrid obviously requires data synchronization, right? So you probably want to have certain technology to synchronize, replicate, change data capture data between the two environments, the hybrid, the on-premise and the cloud. So the way you architect this is to actually build a database on-premise with in-memory and support the localized data sets around that, and then you build a cloud in-memory databases to support the localized data, because you have a lot of data coming in from cloud, like IoT data. You got SaaS data, you got Twitter data, you got Salesforce data, you got all of these Instagram data coming in, or LinkedIn data coming in, I guess, right? So all of this actually could be localized there in memory database, and then you actually have a replication across these environments, which can drive data as well. And that's a hybrid data environment. We have seen that customers do that, especially when you're doing customer churn or customer analytics. You want to be able to integrate CRM data with my Twitter data. Like, how do you do that, right? So you want to be able to move data around from these. Typically, there's a continuous data streaming between the pipelines, between the on-premise and the cloud to deliver that. And we've seen customers do that already. So I guess to answer this question is that, you really have to go, first of all, build these databases, localize it to the environments, whether it's on-premise or whether it's cloud, and then have replication trying to synchronize those data sets between those things. Not synchronize, but even move data around so that the application in the cloud can see all data, and the application on premise can see all data in between these two environments.
Okay. There's one question about the technological advances, and one being the 3D crosspoint. But in generally, what would you see that other than the memory developments are going to impact the NoSQL and SQL massively parallel processing engines? One being maybe 3D crosspoint, or maybe other technologies that you may see out there.
I'm not clear about the 3D crosspoints. What exactly is a reference to? I guess maybe. maybe you want to take that
question generally from the massively parallel processing perspective. Is there any other maybe hardware technologies or any kind of other developments that you see other than the hybrid memory or the
good
memory?
Point. Okay. Yeah. Good point. Typically relational databases have had issue with a single node implementation, right? Because data had to be consistent, it had to be all fed into memory, it had to be in one single node. With NoSQL, you could go scale out architecture, right? NoSQL is all about scale out architecture. Maybe I have tens and maybe hundreds of nodes, and you can have a memory across those nodes in a cluster configuration. So that is a fundamental thing, which means that you don't have to buy those millions of dollars of servers. You can start with maybe even a $5,000-$10,000 server and keep on adding those $5,000-$10,000 servers as you need more memory, as you need more data, actually, right? So you can expand this horizontally across all of these different servers in a compute farm to do a distributed memory architecture, right? In a clustered configuration, though. And so that's what the NoSQL strength lies, right? So when you do a hybrid memory with NoSQL, you're not only doing DRAM and SSD, but you're also doing across the cluster these nodes which could participate, acting as a single database image, which is fundamentally very different than what we've done in the past with relational architectures, right? So certainly, I would definitely see customers looking at NoSQL for their newer generation of application they're building. They're finding it a lot appealing for that reason, because it can do this whole scale-out architectures.
And I can also add to this point, this question around 3D XPoint. I believe it's a technology that Intel has been researching for a while.
Okay.
And they just recently released these Optane-based SSDs, and definitely these advancements in the memory technologies are compounding when we use hybrid memory architecture. And actually, for the benefit of the audience, I can just suggest if somebody wants to really learn deeper into this, I suggest just visit the Aerospike.com blogs. We published a very thorough analysis of how Intel Optane behaves by using a hybrid memory architected database. We have some detailed benchmarks that we continuously use to benchmark these technologies with our database, because ours is the only one out there which can really stress test these technologies, and the results are impressive. So if anybody wants to really try to understand and learn more about these SSD and in memory, please visit our blogs and then the benchmark section on our website. Noel, there is another question here, and we are now kind of coming very close to an end, but maybe one more last question is about the difficulties in terms of deployment. Like, how long typically will it take to deploy, or how it is easy to switch to hybrid memory architecture?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, typically it does not take a lot of effort trying to do this, right? I mean, you're building, if you have solutions which are very automated and simplified, you can deploy this in a day, I guess. I mean, the more important thing is, how do you get to the data, right? I mean, and how is data organized? Typically, you can start, if it's a new application, you start to build this application over a period of time, right? You give developers all of these flexibility of in-memory architectures, and they start to build application and start to utilize the application. So that's one architecture of following. But second is also data movement. If you have older applications, legacy applications that you want to modernize towards doing in-memory, you can always move data, and there may be certain data transformation that's needed. It may take you a couple of weeks trying to do that, but typically within a month or two for those migrations could happen, if it's not too complex applications, right? If you're moving some legacy applications. But if you're building these new applications, you can get started like right away. And especially in the cloud, actually, you could actually have this provision in minutes, right? I mean, these in-memory databases could be deployed in minutes. But it all depends whether you're doing a transition, migration, or as opposed to doing building these new generation of greenfield applications. But yeah, it's typically not so complicated to deploy these in memory, and they come a long way from automation and simplification process, which makes it a lot simpler to deploy today than ever before.
Great. And there's no more questions that I can find here. There are a few, but I think we covered them already in different areas. I guess this now concludes our session. Thank you, Noel, for sharing these great insights. And for all attendees, I hope you find today's session valuable. As I mentioned, we will send the links to the survey paper to all the attendees in coming weeks. So thank you all for attending, and this now concludes our webinar.